Section 2.6b is about odds. Odds are another way to express a chance that an event will occur. So it's very similar to probability, but it's a little different. Here's the basic definition. The odds of an event occurring is a ratio. Remember, ratio is nothing more than a fraction. It's a ratio that compares the number of ways an event can occur to the number of ways it cannot occur. A lot of times you'll see it written this way. It's success over failure. How many successes there are over how many failures. Another way to say that is favorable, just like we use in probability, except in probability it's favorable over total. Here it's favorable over, I don't know, not favorable or failure. Things that you don't want, successes over failures. So that's how you calculate what odds are. And odds are always written as a fraction. Well, I shouldn't say always. They're written normally as a fraction. Other times they're written with a colon in between them, as you'll see in our first example. Here's an example. It says find the odds of rolling a number less than 3. By rolling we mean on a die. Since odds are successes over failure, what would be a success? Well, a success would be rolling something that we want. The number's less than 3. And how many successes are there? Well, there's a 1 and a 2, so there are 2 successes. And now instead of doing total for the denominator, we do how many failures. There are 4 numbers that do not fit this criteria. So we would say 2 over 4, or reducing the fraction 1 over 2. And then we'll write the answer this way. The odds of rolling a number less than 3 are 1 to 2. And that's how you say this. 1 to 2. Which means for every 1 time we actually roll a number less than 3, there's going to be 2 times that we don't. A card is selected at random from a standard deck of 52 cards, and what are the odds against selecting a 3? Now this word against is important, because if I want the odds against a 3, that means I don't want a 3. That means a 3 would not be a success. So instead of doing, so I'll make successes over failures my fraction, and a success is a number that's not a 3. So every other number in a deck is a success, which means there's 48 successes, 4 failures. 4 goes into 48 12 times. So we would say the odds against selecting a 3 are 12 to 1. Here we're going to use a spinner and answer some questions about that. We want to find the odds of each one of these outcomes. So we would like the odds of spinning a multiple of 3. Well, let's see, what are the multiples of 3 here? 3 is a multiple of 3, so is 6, so is 9. So if I spin this, there are 3 successes, but then how many failures? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 failures. So the odds of spinning a multiple of 3 are 3 to 7. How about the odds of spinning an even number less than 8? Well, I can't include 8, and it's got to be even, so 6, 4, and 2. So it looks like 3 of those are successes, 7 are failures, so the same thing, 3 to 7. Now I'd like the odds of an odd number or blue. Well, let's see. Here's an odd number, 3, 5, 7, 9, 1 is odd. There's also 2 blues. So that's 7 possible successes. And then how many are left? 1, 2, 3. So the odds of doing an odd number or a blue are 7 to 3. And then finally red or yellow. There's 2 red and 4 yellow. So the odds there are going to be 6 successes, 4 failures, or 6 to 4. You could also write that as 3 to 2 if you divide each of those by 2. Here we're going to do this problem, and I like it because it illustrates the difference and the similarities of probability and odds. And before I read the problem, I just want to remind you how to do probability again and odds. Probability is favorable outcomes over total. Now another way of writing that could be success. You could say success over total. And the reason I do that is because odds is success over failure. So both probability and odds include this idea of success, things that we want. It's just probability divides by a total value and odds divides by failure. So let's go back to our problem. It says a weather forecast states that the probability of rain the next day is 40%. What are the odds that it will rain? So for rain, it's going to be 40%. Now let's turn that into a fraction. 40% is really 40 over 100, which would be a 4 over 10, which is 2/5. Now what we have to do is we have to convert that into odds. Well, if I do 40 over 100, that means there are 40 successes, because that's how probability is defined, as successes over total, or favorable over total. Which means if I want to find the odds of this, I'm going to use the same number on the top. I'm going to use 40. But I'm not going to use the 100 on the bottom, because the 100 for probability represents a total. Instead, I want the failures. Well, if I have 100 total and I have 40 successes, that means I'm going to have 60 failures, which is 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3, which means the odds of it raining are going to be 2 to 3. So look at the relationship. Both use the success idea or the favorable outcome idea. It's just probability divides by the total and odds divides by the failure.